Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From Cardinals headquarters, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
So just for a moment, let's forget about the outcome. And while we're at it, let's put aside the fact that the Cardinals are the only winless team in the NFL. And I say that with a straight face, not trying to be funny, and I can say that because, well, two words, MJ. Josh Rosen.
Oh, he definitely gave this team a lift. We're obviously going to break the game down and talk about some of the miscues, but I thought the offense had a pulse. You could see they were able to maybe open up the playbook.
Move the football.
Yeah, nothing against Sam Bradford, but this guy's mobile. He obviously can throw the ball down the field. He's accurate. He's willing to, audible at the line of scrimmage. I mean, he definitely passed the eye test. And you don't normally you hear you need to watch a quarterback for 16 games. Unfortunately, he's going to get an opportunity, barring a health issue, that he'll get 13 games. We'll have a better understanding, but what he's been able to do in off-season workouts, I know he only played a couple games in the preseason, and it's translated now to the regular season, he definitely gives them a best chance to win. And I don't know if that was the case early on. I think I was looking at, Sam Bradford's experience and playing in different systems, and clearly it was a different offense yesterday. Got a chance to see David Johnson get more touches. We got to see, Josh Rosen drop some dimes there, even though he did miss a touchdown of Christian Kirk and didn't see him, and that's going to happen. But the fact is that they feel like they've checked that box. Now, it's only one game, but you got to be encouraged as a Cardinal fan looking at the future and looking at this entire draft class. Obviously, you want to get in the win column, and we look back at the last two games. They've lost by a total of 5 points, and it seems like more teams in the NFL lose games than win the games. We know it comes down to the end. I wish we were having a different conversation heading to San Francisco. I wish they were 2-2 and get a chance to get over 500 before they have to go to Minnesota and they get a chance to host the Denver Broncos on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, you can't ignore what happened in the first month of the season, but a positive first step with Josh Rosen in at quarterback, and now we'll look to see what kind of steps he and the rest of the team make this week before they go to San Francisco. All right, let's take off on this Monday, and here's what's ahead on the show. A more in-depth look at Rosen's first career start, and we'll hear from the rookie quarterback. We'll also hear from David Johnson, very hard on himself following the game on Sunday. The rush defense, yes, it needs work. It needs a lot of work. And, of course, your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, and then that's using the number 2. We'll get to those at the end of the show. We do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here live from the Cardinals facility in Tempe. And, of course, if you ever miss a show here or just want to hear more of Mike Jurecki, you can download as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. All right, the news of the day and just some injury updates. Nothing real serious. In fact, everything very encouraging. You're going to hear that word encouraged a lot here, I think, not only on this Monday, but throughout the entire week. Larry Fitzgerald still dealing with a hamstring. He'll be limited probably in practice this week. He will not miss the game. There's no way he will miss on Sunday. Ben Wickery dealing with a spine issue. Both, according to head coach Steve Wilks, are day-to-day. And Andre Smith, the starting right tackle who has been out the past couple of weeks, should be back this week. And if he is healthy, he'll be the starter, and John Wetzel will go back to the bench.
Yeah, this is the first time we deal with a new head coach, and some coaches feel like, a starter shouldn't lose his position to injury. Obviously, if you're not productive, they're going to bench you like they did with Sam Bradford there. Listen, I think John Wetzel's filled in quite well. I don't think there was a huge drop-off, but he was a free agent signing. He was a starter, so he has more time with the 5 offensive linemen. But also it gives Wetzel a chance to be that extra lineman in the game. We know they have a fullback in the roster, so it's a good scenario to have, a good dilemma to have. And if Andre Smith holds up, then you got John Wetzel as a guy that can help protect the pocket and also get that running game going.
The other announcement Coach Wilks made on Monday, he was asked about Mike Glennon being the backup for the duration of the season. And, yeah, obviously, as long as there's no injury, yes, Glennon is your backup, meaning Sam Bradford is number 3 on the depth chart, and number 3 means being inactive on game day.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to talk to Sam. Obviously, don't know if we're going to have that opportunity. It's got to be disappointing for him, but he's a team player. He's involved. He's on all the meetings. He's still at practice. So he can be a sponge for a guy like Josh Rosen. And obviously Mike Glennon doesn't have the wealth of knowledge and experience, but also another veteran guy. So I really like the quarterback room, even though you're going with a rookie quarterback.
Absolutely. All of those guys, including quarterbacks coach Byron Leftwich, able to help Rosen in his first full season as the Cardinals starting quarterback. As we talked about, the Cardinals, still looking for that first win of the season here in 2018. Head coach Steve Wilks, first season as a head coach. But as we've already discussed here on Cards Cover 2, Coach Wilks encouraged by what he saw in totality on Sunday.
I think a lot of it came from Josh, but also I think we got a lot of veteran leaders in that locker room that understand that there's a lot of football left. When we start talking about 4 quarters of ball, very disappointed being 0-4. We didn't expect to be here. That wasn't the expectations, but we can turn it around, and we just need to put together a complete 60 minutes. Trey and I talked, Trey Boston. We talked about this last week, and it's something that I mentioned to the team today. When he was with the Chargers last year, they started 0-4 and went on a run and finished 9-7, had a chance to make it to the playoffs. So we're just going to take it one day at a time, one game at a time, and hopefully we can get this thing turned around this week. I think number one, and I keep going back to Josh, I'm just so encouraged based off what I saw yesterday. I think you guys saw the potential of pushing the ball down the field, which we haven't had in the first 3 weeks of the season. They got to finish now. Those guys wide open, they got to make those catches. His ability to get outside the pocket, and buy time on the sprint outs and the boots and to move the pocket. If we are having some issues for his protection, I think we can help him out a little bit there. And then you saw the glimpse of David and the things that he can do for us moving him around. So I think our offense is getting ready to flourish, and defensively we just got to make sure that we clean up the run fits and tackle well.
I remember that San Diego team last year. Now, they were much more competitive in those 4 games, and they ended up winning 2 in a row and then lost another one. But it's a good example. It's only 25% of the season, but this team has to play for 4 quarters. They have to learn how to finish. Again, the last 2 home games were very winnable, and I don't think they're going to be a playoff team just based on the start right now and obviously the transition to a rookie quarterback. But you definitely want to avoid losing streaks in the NFL. And they got an opportunity to go on the road against a backup quarterback, even though he was a 3rd-round pick. So it'd be interesting to see. But I do think they can open that playbook up and dive a little bit deeper with Josh Rosen.
Now, there has been one team in the history, or at least since the merger between the AFL and NFL, a team to make the playoffs after starting 0-4. And you have to go all the way back to 1992. The then-known San Diego Chargers went 11-5 and won the AFC West. So long odds, but you're telling me that there is a chance.
There's always a chance.
Absolutely.
As long as you got a chance. But
and as long as you have a quarterback.
Yes.
And I think the Cardinals do right now.
You're digging deep there.
Hey, we do research here on Cards Cover 2. Hashtag Cards Cover 2 to get involved in the show with your your questions via social media a little bit later on. All right, as painful as it is and has been so far this season, let's recap Sunday's 20-17 defeat to the Seattle Seahawks. The first offensive possession for the Cardinals did not end well. Josh Rosen sacked by Jaron Reed. It's a loss of 9 yards, and just like that, the Cardinals were forced to punt. On the ensuing Seahawks possession, Mike Davis, getting the start because Chris Carson was hurt. 20-yard run to the outside, and just like that, the Seahawks have a 7-0 lead.
Yeah, you can see he had fresh legs on the depth chart. He's number 4, obviously behind Chris Carson, who is inactive. And then you look at C.J. Prosise and also Rashad Penny. Look at Russell Wilson getting out here, blocking, doing his job. He took the good angle there, and obviously he was able to get to the end zone.
Yeah, and Antoine Bethea, the victim of the Russell Wilson block there. So the Cardinals are trailing, looking to respond, and you put it in the hands of your best playmaker. That's David Johnson. Unfortunately, he fumbles. Though credit Trey Flowers, just ripped the ball out of 31's hands. So now the Seahawks have possession, and they they missed a field goal from 38 yards out. So the score remained 7-0. Still in the first quarter, David Johnson, this time a 17-yard run. That helped set up Phil Dawson with a field goal, and the Cardinals at that point trailed 7-3 early in the second quarter. Late second, Johnson, who had a season-high 71 rushing yards, gains 21 yards to the outside. That sets up a short 1-yard score for the Cardinals to take the lead, 10-7 with just under 2 minutes to play in the first half.
Initially ruled down, but the replay overturned. You could see he didn't get his knee or his elbow on the ground there. He's able to hold his hand with his hand, and the ball crosses the plane, so it is a touchdown, and that's what we were able to witness in 2016 when he had 16 rushing touchdowns. That's the guy you give the ball to in the goal line.
A 6-play, 58-yard drive that took about 3.5 minutes off the clock. Still in the second quarter, and this time the defense comes up with a huge stop. Chandler Jones with the sack. Hassan Reddick also had a sack earlier on the drive, but Jones getting Wilson for the 8.5 times now in his career, those two meeting in the backfield. We move to the third quarter, and it's Davis once again, this time a 1-yard touchdown run, and the Seahawks retake the lead 17-10.
Yeah, look at the replay, and of course you can also check it out online. Just look at the interior line, and we've seen teams run to the edge. We see teams run up the middle, including Todd Gurley, 3 rushing touchdowns. He goes to the right, and then obviously he has a little bit of space, and he's able to get into the end zone.
Cardinals now trailing. Rosen back to pass, finds Ricky Seals-Jones. Jermaine Gresham, the other receiver in the area. Seals-Jones had a drop earlier in the game, but a big catch there later on. How about David Johnson out in space? A 30-yard screen pass. According to head coach Steve Wilks, that was all Josh Rosen looking for Johnson down the field. And those two plays resulted in this. Josh Rosen, again, back to pass, and this time finding his, maybe his second favorite target, but Chad Williams, the second-year wideout, a low throw, but Williams able to get both hands underneath the football. The PAT tied the ball game up 17-all with 8:59 to play in the ball game.
Yeah, you can see he's had a rapport with Chad Williams and Christian Kirk since he's arrived here. You look at Rosen right here in the pocket, and really he threw it to only one guy would be able to catch that. A little play action. We haven't seen a lot of play action in the Cardinal offense. I think we saw more yesterday than in the first 3 games. Great catch and throw right there, and that was the play that Earl Thomas got hurt on.
Absolutely had to be carted off the field with a leg injury. The first career touchdown pass and the first career touchdown catch by both Rosen and Williams, respectively, but just a good job by Williams to get both hands underneath the football and secure it. After the defense forced a 3-and-out, the Cardinals back on the move, looking to take the lead, and a great throw, great catch by Seals-Jones near the sidelines for a 21-yard gain. However, Dawson lines up and misses wide right on a 45-yard field goal, which would have put the Cardinals in front. Seahawks, no timeouts, 1:50 on the clock, and they march up and down the field. Davis first with a long run, and then Sebastian Janikowski, with no time on the clock, will nail a 52-yard game-winning field goal, and the Seahawks walk out of State Farm Stadium with a W, 20-17.
Yeah, and you look at the kicker there, Jankowski. He struggled in Glendale throughout his career at State Farm Stadium, but they did have 3 timeouts according to Steve Wilks. He doesn't believe in that. He doesn't think that it works when freezing the kicker. So, but at that point in time, you're at desperation. He did have 2 missed kicks, and so you got to give the Seahawks credit. They didn't have any timeouts with 1:50 to go, and they were able to march down the field, get in field goal range, and they come away with the victory.
And the home field remains a disadvantage in this rivalry. 2014 remains the last time a home team won in this rivalry. And you have to go back to 2012 when the Cardinals last beat the Seahawks at State Farm Stadium, and that 2012 was Russell Wilson's first career start in the NFL.
We talked about it last week, and I'm sure we'll talk about it going into Week 17. It's just mind-boggling because normally over the history since they've been playing at State Farm Stadium, the Cardinals have had a really good home record. Usually they win 6 out of 8 games. One year it was 7, sometimes 5-3. And the fact that Seattle really has a home field advantage with all the false starts, including what we have at State Farm Stadium, it's just mind-boggling that both of these teams go on the road, and there wasn't a ton of Seahawks fans yesterday.
Nope. It was very well attended by the Cardinal faithful, and of course they'll meet once again, Cardinals and Seahawks, in Week 17. Now let's hear from the guys who had the call up in the broadcast booth. Dave Pasch, Ron Wolfley with this week's 2-Minute Drill.
Welcome to another edition of the Arizona Cardinals 2-Minute Drill. Dave Pasch alongside Ron Wolfley. Wolf, it's another loss. The Cardinals are 0-4, but there was a major bright spot, and his name is Josh Rosen.
No doubt about it, David. Josh Rosen came out here and played as well as I think he possibly could have played. I think that is the headline here. I think he had way too many drops. He didn't get a lot of help out there from his wide receivers. J.J. Nelson was a touchdown, probably about 70 yards right there. Christian Kirk put one on the ground as well, right? I'd say about 5 legitimate drops that his receivers had out there. And honestly, to me, that's just way too many for the National Football League. The thing I liked the most about Josh Rosen was the fact that he went ahead and actually changed some protections, changed some plays. Looked like he was in control of the offense, but a great start for a young guy, and let's hope it goes as well the rest of the season.
But 17 points not going to be enough to win in the NFL. He had 2 missed field goals. I'm sure there will be a lot of discussion about should the Cardinals have run the ball on 3rd down. It still was a 45-yard attempt that Dawson missed. Defensively, what happened against the zone read? Because the Cardinals had all kinds of trouble stopping Mike Davis on that zone read with Russell Wilson.
I would say, David, that it wasn't just the zone read they had a hard time with. Of the 170-plus yards they gave up rushing in this game, I think near 100 of it probably was off that one play, the zone read. And yet it happened over and over and over again where the defensive end would crash from the outside, come down, and you had Davis just bounce it outside after Russell Wilson would give it to him, and Russell Wilson would go around the corner and actually get out in front of the running back and make a block down the field. We saw that for big gains at least 3 different times. The Cardinals are going to have to clean that up or they're going to be in trouble.
Next 2 games are on the road starting next Sunday in San Francisco, and that is the Arizona Cardinals 2-minute drill.
2 big takeaways there from Pash and Wolfley. One, Josh Rosen, and then the second one is the rush defense. We'll get into the defense just a little bit, but first things first, because it's what everyone is talking about. It's how we started the show here on this Monday, and that is Josh Rosen on how well he looked as a rookie quarterback, the number 10 overall draft pick. In fact, was the highest-graded Cardinals offensive player according to Pro Football Focus. We were all impressed immediately after the ball game, but now a day later after watching film, what did head coach Steve Wilks think about Rosen?
When you look at some of the bright spots of the game yesterday, you definitely have to look at Rosen. I thought he played well. I thought he gave us every opportunity to win that football game. Again, very poised, great leader. Put the ball where it needed to be, great accuracy, good arm strength, and I love the way he just commanded the offense and the way we went down the field at times, for scoring. When you look at some of the throws, particularly the 2 to Ricky late in the game, tight windows, very impressive. When you look at a rookie being able to make those kind of throws in that particular situation, I thought was very impressive. So, again, I'm excited about what we have in Josh. Again, he gave us a spark that we needed. It's disappointing we just couldn't finish yesterday. And I see it all from a standpoint of making checks, making adjustments out there, getting the offense in the right position. A couple of things, that screenplay to Christian on 3rd down, that was all him. So he's seeing the certain things that Byron and Mike are talking about throughout the week and getting the offense in the right position to be successful. So, again, great opportunity for him, and he definitely stepped up the way I thought he would. We had 1 sack, and that was early. So, for the most part, we did a great job of protecting him, and he did a great job protecting the football. You saw his athleticism for us getting out of a lot of things that when the pocket was collapsing a little bit, he was able to avoid the rush and get outside. We had 1 low snap. Again, athleticism. He got the ball, got outside the pocket, and got rid of it. One of the things that we talked about, and I was talking to the staff about, we got to make sure that we create, positive plays on 1st down. I thought we got behind the sticks a little bit, 2nd and 11, 2nd and 10, and therefore now all of a sudden you're in 3rd and long. So we got to make sure that we improve there.
Whether it's defending the screen or running the screen, it's been hit and miss throughout the years. Of course, you go back to Larry Centers, one of the best fullbacks in the NFL. But I agree with you, and you may when we were going through the highlights, you said that Wilks, that was all Josh Rosen. We've played a couple highlights. Obviously, you look at the video, and I'm going to explain it here. It's a timing thing. He holds the ball just long enough to the rush comes to him, and he's able to dump it off. And that's what we're envisioning from David Johnson this year, getting him in space, letting him go ahead And you can just see it from that standpoint where he can break tackles. DBs and safeties really don't want to hit the guy when he gets down the field. He can put the accelerator on. So, there's been a couple plays in yesterday's game, but we're going to look back at that and say, this is how you get David Johnson involved. And the timing from the quarterback, where if you do it too soon, some of those defensive linemen will stop rushing the quarterback and they'll try to get the tackle, if not slow him down. So I think that's one of the plays we could see more in the future. And again, you want to get the ball in your playmaker's hands. Great observation on your part and coach's part from a standpoint of he did exactly what he was supposed to do, and that is an excellent screenplay, and we need to see more of that in the Cardinals offense.
Rosen's numbers overall, 15 of 27 for $180 and a touchdown. He completed his last 4 attempts before the decision to put the ball in Johnson's hands 4 straight times to set up Phil Dawson for the potential game-winning field goal. But it's the drops that people focus on that when you factor that in, and Pro Football Focus did, now all of a sudden you're looking at Rosen completing 72% of his passes for his first career start. And Darren Urban of azcardinals.com went back even further and looked at those 12 incompletions and figured out that Rosen should have passed for probably in the neighborhood of 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the J.J. Nelson drop, which would have been a 58-yard score. And, of course, you're not used to seeing Larry Fitzgerald drop the ball, Christian Kirk drop the ball, Ricky Seals-Jones drop the ball, and on the postgame show, Cardinal Talk, Roy Green brought it up. Or I asked him about, one guy drops and all of a sudden everyone else presses thinking, well, I can't drop the ball too. I need to make the catch. And all of a sudden, as I said, it's contagious. And he agreed. Yeah, when one guy drops it, everyone else starts thinking about it, and when you start thinking on the football field, instead of reacting, you're in trouble.
No, I think it's a great point, and obviously Roy would know, playing in the NFL as long as he did, and he was one of the top receivers, and I'm sure he didn't have a lot of drops. I would just think, I want the ball. I want to show I can catch it. And so, yeah, listen, they had 38 drops last year, okay? They were second worst in the NFL. J.J. Nelson, I know that he's the only guy on the roster that has the deep threat, but he's got to catch that football. Now, he did have to slow down a little bit, but the ball, he touched the ball. You got to catch it when you touch it, and that would have been a huge play. We talk about chunk plays. That's how you tilt field position. Regardless, I assume they would have scored a touchdown there. They had a momentum at that point. So, again, they get paid to catch the ball, and it's inexcusable. Larry obviously is still nursing the hamstring, but he'll be the first to tell you he's got to catch those balls, because anytime Larry catches the ball in the stadium, you just feel the synergy in the stadium, and it kind of jumpstart the offense. Guys get confident, start moving the chain. So you can't have 5 drops. You can't have 1 drop. I know it's going to happen. They're human. The other team gets paid too, so sometimes you're going to have a guy that's going to be on you. But anytime it's in your hands, you have to catch the football.
I'd invite everyone to check out Urban's analysis on azcardinals.com. Rosen's performance, spectacular, regardless if you factor in those drops, but his performance after the ball game may have been just even better. Let's hear from the rookie quarterback when he met the media following Sunday's loss.
Felt pretty good. Just wish we won the game.
Do you feel like the setup that you got the touchdown and then you put in position to get the field goal? Did it feel, were you thinking, okay, this is it, we're going to get this one?
100%. I mean, Phil's one of the greatest kickers in the history of football, and it happens. I mean, we all have bad plays. I mean, I think early in the game when I tried to throw it to Chad and it kind of went over his hands, we had a field goal like Christian standing wide open in the back of the end zone. So we all got things we got to work on. And I think everyone had a couple mistakes, and if maybe one of those mistakes didn't happen, we'd be sitting here with a W. So we're all accountable.
Right away, did you just not see Christian or see him too late on that one?
It was just kind of a funky coverage. I mean, Earl's probably one of the best safeties to ever play the game, and he does things that are not in the scheme. So sometimes it's a little tough to pick up what they're doing. I thought I got a zone look, then kind of in the middle of snap got man. Saw Chad open up. I probably could have hit him if I threw it a little lower, but after you throw that, you see Christian kind of jumping up and down in the back, and you're like, God.
You have receivers who are struggling, like you got some of your guys working first half. How do you handle that? Do you talk to them? Do you make sure you have positive body language? Or
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other alternative is all bad, so I mean, you might as well keep pushing on. I mean, trying to encourage everyone. If something happens bad, let's get better, and if something happens good, let's keep going. So it's kind of how sports work, is you just kind of always have to have a positive attitude. Yeah, I mean, as the game went on, I felt more comfortable. As the offensive line, as the game went on, they definitely got more and more comfortable, started chipping away at the defensive line. And on the first touchdown in the fourth quarter, I mean, I don't think anyone was within like 3 or 4 yards. I mean, I was standing back there for almost an hour. Yeah, I mean, our whole team did a very good job. We just came up a little short. Binarily, like, I wanted to win the game. I don't care if I threw 10 picks. I'd prefer that and a win over what happened today.
Times the camera caught you with a big grin on your face and you walked over to the sideline. You've always been able to kind of keep loose and relaxed during games. And
oh yeah, I'm definitely when I'm not smiling, definitely you should be worried.
On the 3rd and 6 call late in the game, would you have liked to have had a chance to throw the ball in that?
No. We've got a specific mark for where Phil wants the field goal. We're a couple yards within it, so we were just chop the clock down. Maybe get a couple yards, help them out even more, but just didn't.
How impressive. First start, and we know Seattle, obviously they're not the Legion of Boom, but it sounds like maybe Earl Thomas kind of freelancing a little bit just because of his experience, young quarterback. He knew exactly what happened as soon as he released the ball. That, to me, is impressive. Usually you figure that out on Monday morning when you're watching film. He knew that right away. And I like the fact that he talked about the offensive miscues, but he also talked about his own mistakes. And it's interesting that he thought it was feasible, or in this case, it was justifiable that they would run the ball. To me, I understand that we've talked about this on the postgame show the last couple of weeks. If you're not familiar with this, usually before the game, the kicker will kick from both ends. Now, obviously, Dawson has experience kicking indoors. And he'll tell the head coach, I feel good from here, I feel good on the other side. He'll do that again in San Francisco. He'll do that for the remainder of the season. And the thing is, you want to also give him an opportunity to kick in the middle of the field. I just look at the 3rd down play, and it's easy to second guess because of we know the results, hindsight. I just think with Rosen, the way he was dealing, you can roll him out, short, quick pass. The ball doesn't have to touch the ground if you want the clock to continue.
True.
Or he can run. And one thing he's going to have to learn is slide, okay? He can't afford to take hits. He's just got a slight frame. You can slide, stay in bounds, keep the clock going, get your field goal unit on the field. The Cardinals did have 3 timeouts. I didn't want to burn them because they didn't want to give it to the Seahawks. Now, do we know if they would officially won the game? You gave the Seahawks the ball with 1:50. Yeah, they didn't have any timeouts, but they didn't need to score a touchdown. They only needed to get it in a field goal range. So I looked at the 3rd down play, and in hindsight, I would have maybe opened it up for Josh Rosen. Not take a shot in the end zone, just get a couple more yards so Phil's more comfortable and confident making that kick.
Well, let's talk about that decision, because at the time, I understand what the team is trying to do and what Coach Wilks is trying to do, and he made the comment immediately after the ball game, and he did so on Monday. Those were his decisions. It was his decision to run the football, not Mike McCoy's. It's the head coach's decision late in games on how you want to deal with those kind of decisions, and the decision was to give the ball in the hand, put the ball in the hands of David Johnson. Look, a week ago, we're talking about where is David Johnson? He's not on the field. Now it's, well, he's on the field and he's getting the ball. So you want to make it as difficult as possible for your opponent late in games to move the football. Burn the timeouts, full field to work with, and, so I understand it. And I always try to put myself in that position if I was a head coach.
Sure.
And especially a defensive-minded head coach, you have trust in your defense to stop the opponent's offense. And that's, I think, is what Coach Wilks was looking to do. It didn't work, and it's easy to second guess. At the same time, does it work if it's not Russell Wilson, not Tom Brady, not Drew Brees, a veteran quarterback who doesn't need timeouts, and you give him 2 minutes? That's an eternity.
Well,
but we've seen head coaches in the past use that strategy that Wilks did and come away successful.
Yeah, and again, they didn't need a touchdown. So, defensively, at this time, you just got to keep everything in front of you. They were trying to get in field goal range. Now, it was, according to David Johnson, there was a miscommunication on that 3rd down play.
Yeah, let's hear from Johnson after the ball game. He always is very accountable and was, once again, Sunday.
What's the level of disappointment right now amongst the guys in the locker room?
I don't know about the other guys, but I'm very disappointed in myself. I had a lot of mentors, man, and I didn't do enough to help out the team and help out, get the win, running the ball, especially at the end of the game, helping out Phil, putting it on the right yard line and right hash, and I didn't do enough.
So you're saying on that third down play, it was something that you did wrong there?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even get any yards. And I just didn't help out. Josh did good. Josh did really well. And I'm excited to see, what happens next coming up.
Did you like your usage in the fourth quarter there? It seemed like they were getting you the ball, screens and throws and running it, kind of a good mixture.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved, anytime I can get the ball in my hand and do as much as I can for the team. I'm very excited to do that. And like I said, some of those plays I didn't make the right read. Some of those plays, definitely a couple of those I missed a couple of blitzes. And so, I put a lot of pressure on Josh, having to get the ball out too quick, faster than he wanted to, and I put pressure on him to get hit, and you never want to get your quarterback hit at all.
So David, can you take us through that third down play? What exactly happened, or what went wrong in your eyes on that play?
What third down?
Before the field goal, missed field goal.
Just ran the wrong way. I was supposed to stay to the left, and we ran it to the left, and I was making the wrong read.
How would you assess the play calling this game as a whole?
I loved it. It was good. Like I said, it's just making the plays when I get my opportunity.
As offense as a whole, the mental errors is what seems to be hurting you guys. Do you feel the same way? The drops, the fumble early?
Yes, definitely. I mean, you can't fumble. That's giving the other team an opportunity to score, and especially where I did it at. Luckily, our defense did a great job of stopping them, and they missed the field goal. But, anytime I fumble or anytime I miss a block, and like I said, put pressure on Josh to get him hit, it's never a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the first time, and I don't want to, sit here and beat a dead horse, but it happened in 2016, and I get it from a young player because, let's be honest, he really didn't get an opportunity to really be the focal guy or the bell cow of the offense till December based on injuries. Comes back the following year, he put up big numbers, but sometimes you got to play between the years. I mean, we know the physicality part for him. It comes natural to him. But coaches got to trust you. And I like the fact that he stands there and says, listen, I screwed up. I mean, they call a play, and then first thing the fans react to, why would Mike McCoy call that?
And that's where it becomes difficult when you dissect play calling because that call on 3rd and 6, if Johnson does what he's supposed to do in his own words, maybe it's not a first down, but maybe it's 5 yards closer, and all of a sudden, instead of a 45-yard attempt, it's a 40-yard attempt, and even more importantly, on the right hash mark.
Yes.
The correct hash mark, not where it was spotted on the right side of the field, more towards the middle or towards the left. Those little details, we don't know immediately after the ball game. We didn't know, until later on that night or, the next day. But immediately it was like, what are you doing on 3rd and 6? Well, you can have the best play called on the field given the defense is showing, but if it's not executed properly, it falls apart, and then all of a sudden the blame gets pointed at the offensive coordinator.
And again, it's not just one position.
Correct.
I mean, it's one time it's the tight end, one time it's the running back, sometimes it's the quarterback, sometimes it's the left tackle. But the fact is, though, on that play, if you want to, we showed it, and you and I have watched it. 10 guys are doing the right job. One guy, and again, it wasn't. He didn't do it on purpose. Maybe he saw something I thought I can squeeze there. I'll take 2 yards, Craig. I mean, 5 yards would be nice, but I'll take 2 yards. That's 2 yards closer, and get to the point where you need to be on the right hash mark. So one guy, 10 guys are doing their job. One guy, and everything goes sideways.
Overall, though, we've been asking and waiting for it for a long time, and that is David Johnson being more involved in the offense. And he was. He had 22 carries, 3 catches, targeted 4 times, 25 total touches, over 100 yards from scrimmage for the first time all season long. Season-high 71 rushing yards and 41 receiving yards, and you get him out in space, and that is where he is most effective. So number 31 is more involved in the offense, and you saw what happens. You're able to move the football and put points up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I love the long run. First of all, he recognizes he puts the ball in the other hand. He gets a little bit of a jump cut there. He's able to use a little bit of a stiff arm, and then he's able to get to the outside. So, again, when he gets the ball in his hands, he is dangerous. We know that. And then when we talked about the screenplay, what a great play by Rosen, but it really was yards after catch. He starts to get down the field. Those DBs don't want to tackle him. So when he gets the ball in his hands now, he's got to hold on to it, but he makes things happen. And we talk about it was 26 touches yesterday. That is a season high. And I got to hope that number. I went into the game yesterday. I said if I had to come up with a number, 20 carries, okay, and he went over that. And I said 5 to 8 targets in the passing game. A little bit close there, came a little shy there. But I want to see those numbers go to 30. And if this team's not trailing behind and you need to pick up some first downs, I'm giving him the ball. 3rd and 1 yesterday. Who was in the game? David Johnson.
Absolutely. This is Cards Cover 2 here on a Monday afternoon. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki still to come here on the show. Your questions via social media using the hashtag Cards Cover 2 with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Cardinals lose a heartbreaker to Seattle on Sunday, 20-17. Let's stay with that run game and now look at it from the Cardinals' defensive perspective, because this is where there is a huge issue and, dare I say, a problem. And it came about in the preseason and it got fixed and now it's kind of come back up. But you look at what this Cardinals defense has allowed rushing yards. I went back and looked. The first 4 weeks, opponents have rushed for 182 yards, 90 yards, 122, and 171 yesterday. Only Detroit is worse in total rushing yards allowed and rushing yards allowed per game. And that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, excuse me. If you throw in Gurley's, I want to say it's about maybe 6 to 7 rushing touchdowns. Now, we know that Gurley was obviously in goal line situation. He ran right up the middle. I think it started with Adrian Peterson in week 1 against the Redskins, where Peterson, obviously, once he gets to that second layer, he starts chopping his legs. And again, once again, DBs really don't want to tackle him. They go with the Matador defense. Now we're starting to see teams get to the edge. And when you watch the film, you see Chandler Jones lined up, and then you see the D tackle, but they don't have anybody else next to there, and teams are going bunches on one side. If you look at a couple of the plays for Seattle, they were able to get to the edge, and they were able to get yards after contact, and they were able to break some tackles. And I asked Steve Wilks today, it's become a trend now. It's 4 games now. And listen, if you can't stop the run in the NFL, we talk about total offensive plays. We talk about time of possession. I mean, let's see, you're going against really good running backs. Now, yesterday was a guy that was buried on the depth chart, but he had an opportunity, made the most of it. But I'm not saying you got to shut him down, but you got to limit some of those runs, because now all of a sudden, if they get 5 or 6 yards, they're sitting at a 2nd and 6. Now they can throw the ball. And then if they pick up 4 or 5 yards, now it's 3rd and 1. So you're really playing on your heels versus your toes. So you have to be able to at least contain the run. I'm not saying it's easy to shut it down, but you can't give up over 150 yards, because that means your defense is missing tackles. There's gap. I'll say there's not the gap discipline you're looking for. So it's still a work in progress. But I'm starting to notice a trend from other teams. They are trying to get to the edge now. And a guy like Gurley in short yardage, we got a chance to see the Seahawks do the same thing, come right up the middle, because when you're in your goal line defense, you really don't have a linebacker in there. It's really guys that are just with their hands in the dirt, and you're trying to win your one-on-one battle and hope you can tackle the ball carrier before he crosses the plane.
You asked the question to Coach Wilks. Here is his answer about the rush defense, or lack thereof.
A lot of credit to Seattle. Let me say that first. But, again, it's what we're not doing. We got to execute the technique. There's times where we should line up outside the tight end based off the call. We're not doing that, all right? And we'll get that corrected. So a lot of times we got to use our hands to get off blocks. We got to play downhill to get the double team off. So, again, they're doing some great things, but there's a lot of things that we're not doing. We got to make sure we get back and execute the fundamentals and technique.
The other thing that creeped up or popped up on Sunday was miscommunication along the defensive end, and it happened early, and the Seahawks were able to exploit it. That was the subject of Paul Calvisi's postgame conversation with new starting cornerback Bené Benwikere.
Talked to several guys in the locker room this week, and I said, all right, tell me about Russell Wilson. They said, well, he's great, but it starts with stopping the run. You guys knew that was number 1 on the grease board. What happened? It was 171 rushing yards by the Seahawks.
I mean, I think there was definitely early, very, very early. We had some miscommunications that didn't allow us to be in the right spot. Good calls by coaches to make the right call. We just didn't get our things communicated across the board, and sometimes we were playing two different defenses amongst the secondary or the back seven or D-line, you know. So that was something that kind of got them rolling, and once you kind of get rolling, they have that gear to keep going.
So there's still that learning curve, new system, new players?
I don't even want to say if I want to blame it on the learning curve. I think those are some assignments that we kind of messed up on our own in terms of just making sure we got things communicated. We talked about communication, and early we didn't do that well. We picked it up.
And Coach Wilks was asked about those comments from Ben Wickery because they're eye-opening. When you hear we're playing two different defenses on a same series or a same play, and Wilks mentioned, yes, it was early in the ball game, and didn't mention specifically. He said a touchdown, and I'm guessing that it was Davis's first touchdown run, the 20-yarder, because the other one was 1 yard out. So it's concerning that, one, to hear the comments, and again, I appreciate the accountability and being open and honest. But 4 weeks into the season, that stuff needs to be corrected and not happen at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a couple times in that game, you had two wide receivers next to each other. You had that the prior week. I think anytime you get a new quarterback, timing-wise, again, you don't want to have those, and they've been able to complete a couple balls even though they have two guys in the same area. The reason why I know this is accurate is because Ben Wickery played for Steve Wilks. He knows the defense, okay? And so it wasn't just talking out of turn or pointing the finger. Listen, if the front seven is doing one thing and then the back four is doing another, it sounds like the front four was trying to get pressure, and maybe the back seven, and including the linebackers and the defensive backs, they weren't on the same page. And those are the things you got to clean up. Those could be mental errors, miscommunication, but it all adds to not doing what you're asked to do. We talk about that play on David Johnson. 10 guys doing their job. One guy didn't do their job, and obviously it wasn't a positive down. Here, if one guy screws up, then all of a sudden there's a downward spiral effect. And I'm glad he brought it up, because at some point you cut down on these mental errors, and it gives you more plays. Maybe you're not giving up a big play. It's just, I just think everything's so new system, adapting to the personnel, new quarterback, new coordinators, new head coach. But these aren't excuses. These guys have worked together since April. They've had 2,000 reps in the offseason, but when the bright lights are on, sometimes guys try to make a little bit of freelancing, and you got to stick to what the defense is asking you to do.
A quarter of the season is now in the books, and the Cardinals 0-4, their worst start since 1986. That was 2 years before they arrived in Arizona. And now you look at what's ahead, the second quarter of the season, if you will, the next 4 games before the bye week. And, well, one, you've got San Francisco on the road in Week 5, but twice you play San Francisco in a 4-week span.
Well, that's good news, and a couple of those games are on the road, so the next 2 are on the road, then they come back and they play on Thursday night against the Broncos. Now, you know, San Francisco's been dealing with injury, starting with their starting quarterback. They did draft C.J. Beathard in the 3rd round. We know Kyle Shanahan. Joe Staley got hurt in that game. So curious to see what their offensive line looks like. They lost their top running back, even though the backup's playing particularly well. Pierre Garçon is a guy that's getting a little bit older. Marquise Goodwin, he can stretch the field. So they don't have as many weapons, but they do a lot of motion. They do a lot of shifting. If there was a comparison, not personnel-wise, very similar with Sean McVay. They try to create matchups and attack your weaknesses. So it'd be really important to get your first win, another division game, a road game. Tee it up in Minnesota. We know that Buffalo went there, and they were 17-point underdogs. Then you come back on a short week against the Denver Broncos at home. And this team at some point is going to have to take care of business at home. And then the following week you get the Niners. And then they have their bye week. So it's a part of the schedule. Now, early on, 3 out of the 4 at first were at home. You would think that, you know, hopefully they were 2-2, but that's not the case. But, besides maybe the Vikings, just because they do have a lot of talent in that roster and you got to travel, that game, we'll see. We'll see how they play this week. We'll see how Rosen plays. But 2 games against the Niners and 1 game against the Broncos at home, they are winnable if you take care of your business.
This week in San Francisco, 1:25 the kickoff from Levi's Stadium. 8:30 a.m. is the pregame coverage on the Arizona Cardinals radio network. And if you want to know the where, when and what to look for, just go to azcardinals.com/game central. All right, we've reached that time in the show. Time for the Bird Gang to sound off here on a Wednesday. Appreciate everyone's involvement using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2 using the number 2. And we'll start with Twitter. And a user wants to know, should we evaluate the kicking position given the 2 misses by Phil Dawson on Sunday?
Well, I mean, I think it's fair. Now, obviously, the Cardinals made a decision to go into the season with a veteran kicker. He obviously had some miscues and struggled in the first half, much better in the second. I think you mentioned last night he was 20 of his last 22.
Yeah, made his last 20 of 22.
Right. So, but listen, he gets paid to kick, and this team is going to be in close games. They need a Phil Dawson. I haven't heard anything. Normally, the Cardinals do bring in players for tryouts. They don't give us a list. It's something they've done within the last couple of years, maybe going back to when Bruce Arians and Steve Keim were promoted in this case. So, for me, I give him another opportunity. But at this point in time, if they're going to be in close games and they're going to try to finish games, he needs to make these kicks.
Dawson immediately after the ball game, quote, "I didn't do my job well today." He stood in front of his locker and answered all questions from the media. Back to Bird Gang sound off, and still on Twitter. What would you say was the biggest reason for the loss against the Seahawks? Coaching, play calling, mistakes, efforts. Something needs to change quickly.
Well, I think the 5 drops. You go through those numbers.
Execution.
Yeah, execution. I think the drops hurts drives. Obviously you don't see Larry Fitzgerald drop the ball. We can question the play calling. Again, David Johnson had a mental error there. You want to get closer. But I would say the 5 drops really affected this offense. They could have scored more than 17 points.
Absolutely. Could have had a lot more yards as well and kept Seattle off the field as far as their offense. All right, moving to Instagram. Thoughts on Josh Rosen's performance on Sunday?
A lot of good. I mean, to me, he passed the eye test. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, especially when you're throwing the mix right there. But I thought the Cardinals opened up the playbook. They were able to use play action. We didn't see that from Sam Bradford. I thought the offensive line gave him protection. He had time to throw. He was dropping dimes. He has command of the huddle. He's confident. He definitely passed the eye test. I am thrilled that the Cardinals have checked that box. I know it's only one game, but the future looks bright at that position.
Yeah, sacked once, hit 7 times. Rosen getting protection by the offensive line. Also from Instagram, a lot of fans want the OC, referring to Mike McCoy, fired for bad play calling. Should he, this user wants to know, get most of the blame?
Listen, Steve Wilks, he's the head coach. He makes those decisions. If he feels like some play, because Steve Wilks has the headset on. He hears all the plays going in there. He can override it. He decided to go a little bit conservative there. If execution was an interesting thing, I just think play calling is so subjective. I thought the play calling was fine yesterday. Yeah, they got a little conservative in the second half, maybe trying to protect the lead because this team is starving for a win. But execution to me is the main thing. I understand the frustration on the outside, but I think that we saw a different Cardinals offense yesterday, and hopefully they can build off of that.
Last question from Instagram. What do you think the Cardinals need to change in order to win next week in San Francisco?
Well, they got to continue to cut down on mental errors. They got to obviously get off to a good start again, and they got to be able to stop the run. I know that they don't have Jarrett McKinnon. Maybe you can force C.J. Beathard and some interceptions. The Cardinals haven't had as many turnovers. Now, one thing that stuck out from Rosen yesterday, no turnovers. You look at Baker Mayfield and some of these other young quarterbacks, they're turning the ball over. We did not see that. It's just more execution and not beating yourselves. As I started the show, I talked about more games are lost in the NFL than won based on mistakes, usually in the 5 or 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and what you don't want is those mistakes to be repeated.
Right.
You learn from them, get back on the field on Wednesday, and then you get back into game day on Sunday and try to get that first W of 2018. So appreciate everyone reaching out. Bird Gang Sound Off. Again, we do it every show, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on Cards Cover 2 using the hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to reach out to either myself or Mike Jurecki. And with that, that is going to wrap up this edition of Cards Cover 2. Special thanks behind the scenes to Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Brandon Nadas, Jesse Aranda, and Jackson Sipes. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. This is Cards Cover 2.